Good afternoon. We're going to call this meeting of the Assembly Committee on Revenue to order. With that, Madam Secretary, can you take the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Cohen. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblywoman Gallant. Assemblyman Gray. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Mosca. Assemblyman Wynn. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Orntlicker. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Chair Backus.
Present, and please mark Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong present when she arrives. Today, we only have two bills on our agenda. And I would just ask anyone, we have a full house, could smell the cigar coming in. But I would just ask for those guests that are appearing here first time, if you can make sure your phone ringers are off, that'd be greatly appreciated. We want to be able to capture everyone testifying today. Also, one thing is in our committee, we can be a little less formal. You don't have to go through the committee chair when we're asking questions. You can go directly to our esteemed members. And also, we should be good for time for those giving testimony in support and opposition. But if it comes to a time I'm feeling like we're getting a little close, we may just have people give, I'm in support, or if you want to say ditto, that would be greatly appreciate that with that. With that, our first bill that we will be here today is Assembly Bill 232, which revises provisions governing the taxation of other tobacco products. And our second bill will be Assembly Bill 295, which revises provisions relating to certain tax exemptions for veterans and surviving spouses of veterans. With that, I will open the hearing for Assembly Bill 232. I would invite Assemblyman Hibbett to make his way to the table, as well as our esteemed colleague, Assemblyman Wynn. And begin when you guys are ready. If the two of you are bouncing back and forth, just make sure you state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair Backus, members of the committee. For the record, I am Brian Hibbets, representing Assembly District 13. I'm here before you today to present Assembly Bill 232. Currently, for the purpose of taxation, premium cigars are grouped in with other tobacco products under NRS 370.0318, which includes tobacco of any description, vape products, any alternative nicotine product, or any product made from tobacco other than cigarettes. The tax imposed upon the receipt, purchase, or sale of other tobacco products is 30% of the wholesale price. Assembly Bill 232 removes premium cigars from those provisions and instead limits the tax to not more than 50 cents for each premium cigar. Further, the bill defines premium cigar as a cigar that is rolled by hand, has a wrapper made of whole tobacco leaves, and does not have a filter or mouthpiece. For a little bit of other side of the valley perspective, I'd like to have my colleague and co-sponsor, Mr. Wynn, take over for the moment.
Thank you, Assemblyman, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and member of the amazing Committee on Revenue. My name is Yui Nguyen. I have the honor to represent Assembly District 8 in Southwest Las Vegas. And the reason I am here today, alongside with Assemblyman Hibbett, is to ensure that my constituent voice is part of this bill. Back in November, when I was elected to office, I got a phone call from Mr. Mark, who is a constituent of my district and about to open his own cigar shop, and you're going to hear from him later in the testimony. And it was an interesting, he was educating me about the cigar world, and I was able to learn about the challenges as a new employer in my district, as well as someone who's going to create more economic development opportunity in District 8, and also learn about this bill that Assemblyman Hibbett's bringing along. And I was happily signing on because it would create more opportunities, not only in my district, but entire state, in terms of cigar small business owner having the ability to expand. So I know in interest of time and efficiency with this Committee on Revenue, I wanted to limit my remarks and kick it over to Mr. Mike Sullivan, who will give you a little bit more details about the effort behind this initiative.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Mike Sullivan here today with the Ferraro Group representing Malecon Tobacco. The retail cigar industry in Nevada is facing enormous challenges, with rising prices from cigar manufacturers to unfair competition from internet sellers who do not pay the state's high excess tax, to neighboring states who have recently passed the kind of tax cap we're talking about today. We can no longer compete and be successful. That means a further loss in revenue for the state and a loss of jobs on the horizon. If we do not make significant changes soon, many hardworking local small business owners will be forced to close their doors or drastically change their business model, and it will not be a positive step for Nevada. Hence the need for AB 232. This bill will greatly enhance the business owner's ability to compete in the internet sales and other states in the region. AB 232 will not make changes to the vast majority of OTP products, such as snuff, chewing tobacco, and machine-produced cigars. Only a small percentage of OTP collections are made up by premium cigars. However, we feel strongly that AB 232 will create even more tax revenue in the form of increased sales tax when our businesses sell more cigars to locals and tourists. We're not just guessing this will happen. We have witnessed this happen in other states who have passed similar caps. And in the exhibits, there's a study done by the Premium Cigar Association, which goes over a lot of other states who've passed a similar measure and how the tax revenues have gone up, doubled in some states. Wisconsin was one of those states, passed a cap 2 years ago or passed a cap, and 2 years later nearly doubled their sales. Same with New Mexico, Oregon, and Ohio. We know that we will sell more product because we know our industry. Today, I've brought with me several different cigar store owners who are going to talk to you a little bit about their business, why this bill would be so effective for them, and speak to how they think they'll greatly enhance the tax if this bill is passed. I'm going to pass it over now to Jason Samuelson from the Cigar Box.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jason Samuelson, Jason Samuelson for the record. I have worked for Fryboy Tobacco in the premium cigar retail industry in Las Vegas for 25 years. With the increasing prices from cigar manufacturers, the low tobacco tax rates from other states, and the no tobacco tax rates from the mail order industry, I am here today to ask for your support of AB 232, which would add a cap of 50 cents to the current 30% OTP tax on premium cigars. This cap only affects the tax rate on premium cigars, which we believe represent the smallest portion of the OTP tax segment. I believe it was the 1983 session of the state legislature that enacted that all products made from tobacco, other than cigarettes, were to be taxed at 30% of the manufacturer's wholesale price. I don't know what the prices of premium cigars looked like in 1983. But when I started in this business in 1997, cigar prices were much different than they are today. A premium cigar that sold then for $4 is now $9, and a $9 cigar then now sells for more than $17. Premium cigar prices continue to climb, and with those increases comes a larger tobacco tax burden. A box of 25 premium cigars at a wholesale price of $250 costs us an additional $75 in OTP tax. A customer can try one of those premium cigars in our store and then save the $75 by purchasing a box of those premium cigars online. Most customers want to support our local small businesses, but that's a lot to ask. Not only do we lose sales because of the price, but also because we can't stock as much inventory, with the requirement to pay the OTP tax when we receive the product, not when we sell it. We believe that increased inventories and the ability to compete with the online prices or other states' lower tax rates would help us to keep some of these sales in our stores and in our state. We all believe that we will be able to buy and sell more premium cigars, but also some of us would open more stores, employ more people, and in the end increase the tax generated by our increased purchases and sales. We've seen data from other states with similar OTP tax rates that have added a cap, and it seems they've been able to generate more tax revenue. We would love that same opportunity so that we don't have to close our stores in the future, providing no tax revenue for our state. We are doing our very best to provide a great customer experience while keeping our prices as low as we can. But it's very difficult to watch a customer sit in our lounge, smoke a cigar, pull out their cell phone, log on to our Wi-Fi, and order a box of those cigars from a mail order site. There are days of when I think how easy it would be for us to close our local store in Las Vegas and move it to Arizona. Not only would our tobacco tax on premium cigars be much lower, even lower than the rate we are asking you for today, but we could sell cigars to Nevada customers, many of whom we have built relationships with over the last 25 years. We would save them money on their purchases, but the state of Nevada would not receive any of the OTP tax on these sales. I don't want to close our store here and open in another state. Nevada is my home. I moved here in 1997. I met my wife here. Our daughter was born here. And if I can go into proud dad mode for just a second, she's less than a couple of months away from graduating from the University of Nevada in Reno, and she actually showed up today and surprised me. So, please give us the opportunity to try and keep more sales in our state by supporting AB 232. I would like to thank this committee for your time and consideration.
Brian Hibbets for the record. Madam Chair, a few things have been mentioned here but not gone into explanation, so before questioning, hopefully I can answer some of those prior to that. If you look at, well, first of all, let me start off with our OTP tax is 50 cents, or I'm sorry, is 30%. We want to cap it at 50 cents. I like to use Arizona as an example. If you look at the Phoenix metro area and the Las Vegas metro area, Phoenix metro area has roughly double the population of the Las Vegas area. That is obviously not an exact number, that is just an approximation. However, they have 8 times as many cigar lounges. 8 times. The only reason for that is because their tobacco tax is capped at 22 cents for premium cigars. We want to cap it at 50 cents just to give our retailers a fighting chance. Texas caps theirs at 1 penny per cigar. Florida has none. Obviously, anybody selling over the internet or mail order doesn't have any tax either because they just ship it here and nobody knows about it. So that's why we're concerned about the surrounding states and the mail order. If you look and everybody says, "Oh, well, you're gonna reduce revenue." Well, yeah, we're going to reduce revenue in OTP money, but we're going to make up for that and then some in sales tax. If you look at in the exhibits, the exhibit that starts out with the PCA logo, if you go to attachment 2, which is hang on, I don't have my glasses on. Sorry, Wisconsin. In 2008, they had 7.1 million in tobacco or in cigar tobacco money or in tax money. That's when they instituted the tax. 2 years later, it almost doubled to 13.7 million because they were selling more. If you look at the next page, Michigan non-cigarette tobacco tax, they instituted their tax cap in 2012. They took a slight dip in 2013. And they went from 65 million up to roughly 93 million by 2019. They had originally written theirs very similar to the way that this bill is written, and they put a sunset on it just to see, like, hey, let's sunset this in case we end up, tanking. And when they saw the amount of money that they were making, the sunset was removed and Governor Whitmer signed that into law. hopefully I've answered a good portion of your questions beforehand, but if not, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Assemblyman, for your presentations as well as your guest. We'll go ahead and start some questions. We have a question from Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this presentation. You did answer actually one of my questions, but I don't know that much about cigars, so I'd love if you could share some of the context of, what are the numbers when it comes to premium cigars, of how many are we selling, or what's the ballpark, so you can understand context.
That is better going to be answered by one of our owners. I can tell you that tax-wise, and we've looked into this, taxation can't tell us how much they're making off of premium cigars because they don't break it down that way. All that taxation knows is that it's OTP tax. But as far as numbers, I'm going to have one of our owners step up and answer the generalized.
My name is Shar Brumand, SHARBROUMAND for the record. I own Fuego Cigars. We have 2 locations in Las Vegas and Henderson. I'm going to try and answer your question like this. When we look at cigar smokers in the United States, roughly 3%, and that's a very conservative number, 3% of the general population has any interest in smoking cigars. So if we take the roughly 3.8 million people that live in the state of Nevada, 3% will spend money on cigars on an annual basis, and a very low conservative number would be $2,000 a year spent. So when you run that math and you try to figure out how much we should be collecting at the 30%, it's way above what we're taking in as a state right now. In fact, the number I came up with is it should be 65 million, and we're somewhere around $2 to $3 million max is what the state's taking in. Why? They're not buying in this state. I have customers that are literally ordering boxes of cigars from out of state every month because the difference on a box is $150 or more. And I just want to reiterate that when we talk about 22 cents or 50-cent cap, or in the state of Texas is 1 cent, we're talking about per cigar, not box of cigars. So we're talking about a 50-cent cap on each cigar. And again, if you run the numbers based on the 3%, you can get a rough idea of how much money we're leaving on the table as a state by not capping. So hope that answers the question.
Thank you. We'll go to Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I actually have 2 questions, but I'm so happy that you're still up here at the table. My first question is, how much is the average cost of these premium cigars? Not as a box, but as a average cost of these premium cigars just individually, if you know that.
It's Shar Brumand again from Fuego Cigars. Are you asking the cost or the retail price?
Thank you so much for that clarification. Whatever it is taxed upon, whatever the tax is currently.
Okay, so the average price of a premium cigar in the last 5 years has gone above $10 as far as price goes. So the cost to us is anywhere between, on the low end, $3.50 to $7, and that's the range that the tax is on. However, in the world of cigars, that average is a little deceiving because there's a big difference between the average cigar and what people like to smoke, which we've seen that number go up. Cost to us can be as high as $15. So on a $15 cigar, if we're paying 30%, it's a big difference.
Thank you for the clarification, because my knowledge of the cigar is the smell. And then how often you see it on the movies with very specific people. So thank you for the clarification. And I greatly appreciated Mr. Sullivan coming in to speak with me yesterday. And so a question I'm going to ask next is actually one that he already knows. He's ready for it. How much or how many, in your guesstimation, and then also if Mr. Sullivan wanted to help out with this, how many sales are happening away from those of you that are bringing this information forward? In other words, how many are the cigars fell off the truck and then we're not able to find out that information, in your opinion? I'm not asking this correctly. Or wait, I just got to phone a friend that I was doing it correctly. Basically what I'm asking is, in your opinion, how many people are not being regulated correctly when it comes to this tax and also the selling of these cigars?
So I'm going to go back. Sorry, Sharberman and Fuego Cigars for the record. I'm going to go back to my estimation that if 3% of the population are smoking cigars, and the numbers are currently showing us roughly what we collect, it's a very high number. It's a very, very high number. You can drive to Arizona and buy cigars. Even easier is mail order. Mail order is not regulated. Yes, there are some big mail order companies that are required to report to different states, and I believe Nevada has requested that, tried to enforce it. But most customers are not going to those sites. As I said, I have customers that are multiple customers that are ordering boxes from a small store in Florida where there's zero taxes. It's a big number. It's a very big number. With that said, I would like to reiterate, everybody wants to support local, and we saw that when we came out of COVID. People were cooped up for months, and all of a sudden they were out in droves. Of course, they were flush with money, but they were out in droves supporting us. We saw our numbers significantly go up, and they all said we want to support. But since COVID, we've had at least 3 rounds of price increases in the cigar industry, and that's supply chain related, not just taxes. Everything from raw materials. The labor markets in Central America have been in turmoil for the last 3 years. So we've seen the cost of cigars go up tremendously. And so those customers are not coming in as often anymore. And we've seen that in the last year.
Maybe, just one more, maybe 2. So I guess my last question, are there any cigar shops based upon the internet sales and or other sales that are in the state of Nevada that, from your understanding or from Mr. Sullivan's understanding, are having to pay the commerce tax? Do we know of any that are able to make more than $1 million? I think, how much is it? What is it? 4 million? Are there any cigar shops at this time based upon the internet sales and or other sales that are paying the commerce tax? I see many people that are looking at each other, and I'm thinking no, but you all can get those numbers back to me later if you like. Great. And also, I would like to be able to work with you all about possibly figuring out a way to work on the regulations in the interim, because I wish there was a way for us to be able to utilize the revenue generated from these items to be able to increase our regulation items, but I also understand. Thank you, Chair, for that much time.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Cohen?
Thank you, Chair, and if it's okay, I've got a couple. Thanks. Okay, thank you for the presentation. So my first question is a 2-parter. So I understand about the 3% who are smokers, but we know that, Las Vegas is different, right? It's a tour with our tourist economy. So what's the impact of tourists who are coming to town who are willing to spend more, right? Because they're not going to buy online, because they're in the casino, they're having a bachelor party, they're having, whiskey, right? I don't know what people drink. A nice, they're spending money on a nice glass of something, and they're willing to spend some money, and they'd be willing to spend more on a cigar, and maybe they're not even a usual cigar smoker, but they're there for a bachelor party or whatever. And I will tell you, like, that does concern me. I don't want to lose that possible revenue from those people who would be a resource, or a source, I should say.
Brian Hibbets for the record, and my presenters in the back are going to correct me if I'm wrong on this. The average person that comes here and visits the Strip, for example, that is willing to have a few drinks and spend a little extra money on a cigar is not buying a bundle of cigars or a box of cigars. They're buying one, maybe two or three for their friends. And granted, they are going to pay Strip prices for those because the rent is higher there. But they're not making an economic impact. They are not the people that are coming to Las Vegas in order to purchase cigars. They're in Las Vegas to party and happen to purchase a cigar. People do travel to Las Vegas to purchase cigars, and they will go to off-strip locations to purchase those. And generally, they're going to be coming from places that have higher taxes than we do. But people that come from places that have lower taxes, like Florida, if they're coming here, or Arizona, they're bringing cigars with them. They are not buying our cigars, and they're not leaving their money in this, excuse me, our state. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, yeah, in part, and then so then the next part of that would be, so if they do buy at the hotels, the casinos and the resorts, do the resorts sell themselves, or do they have local cigar stores that lease space there?
Brian Hibbets for the record. And please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it is both. I believe certain stores within the hotels are lease space to local cigar shop owners, and some of them are actually owned and run by the hotels themselves.
Okay, and then one more, if I may. And then I guess what I would ask for is if there would be some consideration, if the bill does look like it's moving forward, if you would consider an amendment to have a floor, so not just a cap, but a floor, so that if we're willing to reduce the amount down to the 50 cents, that we bring the floor up to the 50 cents. But so
Brian-
I ask that you consider that.
Brian Hibbets for the record, sorry for the feedback. Absolutely, because there's not a single cigar that I'm aware of that is considered a premium cigar that would be less than 50 cents in tax. I may be wrong about that, but I just don't know it.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Assemblyman or Elector.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. You've focused on the economic argument, and that makes those numbers add up. But the other reason, of course, why we have cigar taxes and tobacco taxes is there's the public health reason. And so reducing the tax, of course, would undermine the public health goals of these taxes. So it seems like that would, a lot, public health advocates would say we're turning back the clock, we're undermining progress. So I'd appreciate your thoughts on that.
Brian Hibbets for the record, and thank you for the question. I very much appreciate that, because cigar smoking is not the same as cigarette smoking. And I'm sorry, I forget which exhibit it's in. I believe it's the NASM study notes and Noteworthy, the Good, the Bad, and the Inconclusive. Actually lays out quite a bit of how cigars are different, and mostly different than cigarettes, because there's a reason that cigarettes are taxed completely different than every other kind of tobacco. And I will have made no secret about this. I am a cigar smoker, and I can tell you, you do not inhale cigars. It's not a pleasant experience when you do. Believe me on that. You may do it accidentally, but you're not going to do it again. And I'm not saying that they're a perfectly safe product, because they are not. But the average age of I mean, if you look at who's smoking them, they're anywhere from, I think, 26 to 46. It's not you're not going to have like a 16-year-old wandering into a cigar shop trying to buy a premium cigar. Is it completely safe? No. But nothing is. I probably have a higher chance of dying by driving back to my apartment, which is 3 blocks away, than I do from cigars. Of course, if I'm smoking a cigar while I'm driving, that might not bode well. I believe Mr. Sullivan has a little bit to like to shed on this.
Mike Sullivan, for the record. I just wanted to say that to that point, we're a very small part of the OTP tax, 2%. The OTP products will still be taxed the same way, and we will still pay the OTP tax. It'll just be somewhat less. So we're not getting it away from it, or we're not going away. We'll still be paying that tax, just be slightly less. I know that answers your question, but we're not asking to go away. We're still going to pay it.
Next, we'll go to Assemblyman Haven.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Assemblyman Nguyen and Assemblyman Hibbets, for presenting today. And just looking at the data, it sparked my interest, and looked up that the cigarette tax is currently at 9 cents per cigarette. And so I'm curious why you're suggesting that we go to 50 cents, which is almost 6 times the amount that we're currently charging per cigarette, rather than having some parity and charging the same amount that we're currently charging cigarettes.
Brian Hibbets, for the record. I will immediately do an amendment to go with your suggestion. But seriously, the reason that we have not is because we have empirical evidence that 50 cents is a good tax cap. If you look at a cigarette compared to a cigar can take anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours to smoke. A cigarette, I believe the average, if you just light it, is 12 minutes. It is a whole lot less tobacco than a cigar, and it's a whole lot less quality also. It's a different experience. They're just two completely and totally different things. We are not looking to be on par with cigarettes. We are looking to make premium cigars its own classification within the OTP.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just I've now realized thank you for meeting with me about this bill, but now that I'm just looking at this, I realize there is a difference between like the revenue that the state's getting and the sales. And so when I look at this, anything pretty much that is purchased wholesale that is more than $3.50 for the purchase price does not actually increase revenue for the state. Basically, it sounds like it is a matter of economic development from the increase in sales is what it sounds like, just doing the math. You guys would agree with me on that?
Mike Sullivan, for the record. Yes, that's what other states have that we've seen in these reports. It doubles the sales in cigars, and which makes a lot more money on the 8% sales tax, 8 3/4, whatever it is. So that would be that's where we think the state's going to make far more money. And yeah.
And Madam Chair, if I may, Brian Hibbets for the record. I can tell you that what this will allow me as a consumer to do is to buy a better cigar, which is going to cost more, so I'm going to end up spending more. I'm not necessarily going to be spending, my personal purchasing is probably not going to double, but I'm going to buy better ones so that I will end up spending more, just don't tell my wife, and end up paying more in sales tax. Hopefully she's not watching.
Even with that, I do the math and it still doesn't add up, because if you were to you go from a $50 cigar to a $100 cigar, we may have lost the 30% tax on the wholesale of a 50% a $50 cigar, you go to a $100, we're gonna get $8 versus $30. I mean, that's the math. And so it sounds like, and I just missed it when you guys were talking about it, it's the sales that are gonna increase. But I do have a question for either Mr. Broman or Mr. Samuelson. One of the things I see is sometimes when the taxes are decreased at the wholesale level, is that savings really going to be passed on to the consumer? And that's the question.
Jason Samuelson for the record. Thank you for the question. Absolutely. If it's, I believe the date is July 1st. So July 1st, 100% that would be passed on to my customers. And also, not only do we believe that we would sell more, but I would also purchase probably twice the inventory that I have now. So that would help to offset some of that initial decrease in the 30% tax with the 50-cent cap. So we would be buying more inventory as well, thinking that we were going to be selling more inventory, and then also not to miss out on potential future sales by not having the inventory because of having to pay the tax up front like we do now. But yes, I speak for our store, but yes, we would pass those savings on. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into testimony in support of Assembly Bill 232. We'll start down in Las Vegas to give the presenters time to move off of the front dais. And also, when you're giving testimony, if you don't mind saying your name and spelling it, it will really help those that are here recording your testimony. Thanks so much.
Are we ready?
We're going to start in Las Vegas. So, sir, in Las Vegas, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Peter Guzman, Peterguzman, and I have the privilege of being the president of the Latin Chamber of Commerce, Nevada. I had some comments planned to say, but I got to tell you, after listening to the gut-wrenching testimony by Jason, a member of my chamber from the cigar box, is not a whole lot more I can say. The man was fighting for his livelihood. And what really struck me was the fact that the idea of opening more stores, employing more people, that is an economic driver, economic development that we at the Latin Chamber of Commerce are always striving for. So I think it is so important that we try to do all that we can to help open more stores, create more jobs by passing AB 232. I think that can and will happen. We heard it directly from the person that's in the trenches. So the Latin Chamber of Commerce fully supports this bill, and I hope you do as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guzman. Is there anyone else down there in that room in Las Vegas with you? I appreciate that. With that, we'll come up to Carson City, and we'll start with whoever wants to start first.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name, for the record, my name is Michelle Runless, Runles. And my husband, Melvin, and I own a store called Tapanash. It's a small cigar lounge in Las Vegas near the Arts District. We're in the Gateway. And as a newly opened, small, minority-owned business, we're here today to ask for your consideration for the passage of AB 232. Anyone opening a small business is aware of the challenges associated with keeping costs down, maintaining city, county, and state licensing requirements, taking care of your civic duties, and hopefully seeing a small profit when all is said and done. This is why consideration of this bill is so important to us as a business, but for those who are represented here today and in our industry as a whole. Currently, our lounges have two options for purchasing product. The first is ordering direct from a manufacturer or an out-of-state distributor, where we were required to pay the monthly upfront tax for 30%, as you know. With, I will add, no option to utilize tax incentives provided by these distributors or manufacturers that are willing to pay those taxes on our behalf. The second option is through approved local distributors who not only pass on their own markup as a middleman, but also the added 30% tax that they are required to pay on our behalf. As I'm sure you can imagine, paying a 30% tax on an item that you haven't even had the opportunity to sell creates a significant financial burden to our bottom line, as well as having a major impact on our ability to build working capital. It also makes it financially difficult to attract customers and stay competitive with online sellers or larger brick-and-mortar retailers when our price point has to be inflated in order to compensate for the tax liability and still remain profitable. In most cases, premium cigars are not a high turnover item and could potentially sit on a shelf for weeks or even months before it is sold. As an example, when we originally stocked our humidor, our inventory cost somewhere in the range of $50,000 to $75,000, which by itself is a significant investment. However, with the current tax code, this means we spent an additional $15,000 to $23,000 on taxes before we sold a single cigar. In our particular business, the majority of our cigars are sold individually, so recouping the taxes on a full box could potentially take several months or even a year or more, depending on the price point or popularity. To give you a clearer picture, with almost a year under our belt, we've nearly paid $70,000 in taxes, directly and indirectly, since opening our doors. This is also with a good amount of that original product that's still sitting on our shelves. It is also fair to say that most lounges depend solely on cigar sales, where the average item is somewhere between $10 and $20. This is unlike online retailers that are not required to pay taxes or brick-and-mortar locations that sell multiple products, such as convenience stores or larger retailers who sell an extensive line of unrelated products that support the type of time and expense needed to carry this tax burden. The change proposed in AB 232 for each premium cigar would not only put our small business on an equal playing field with other retailers, the retailers I mentioned earlier, it would immediately improve our bottom line by freeing up working capital and allowing us better financial footing to grow and improve our business. I will add that precedents, as we already talked about, has been set for this type of taxation in Arizona, which charges a 22-cent tax for each premium cigar, a state we actually compete with for our business due to the lower tax rate. We recently had a customer come in our lounge with a cigar that we would normally sell for $10 with a price tag showing $3.95 that they purchased from Fox's Cigar online, which is in Arizona. We sincerely appreciate you taking the time to consider the passage of this bill, and I hope I was able to clearly express it's important to our business as well as for everyone in our industry carrying this tax burden in our state. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope that I thank everyone here for your commitment to small businesses in Nevada.
I'm Aisha Goins, Aesha Goins with Black Joy Consulting, here on behalf of Tap and Ash Social Club. I just want to point out just a couple of things. Michelle went over everything, but I want to point out that I also smoke cigars. I visit their lounge. It is my third home. Everyone knows if you're looking for me, that's where I'm at. I want to 2 points were made, and it really had to do with the purchaser. And since I am the purchaser, I want to just kind of put some clarity to that. I do buy cigars from the lounge, but then also the way that the lounge is operated, I have a box, and so I get a credit. So they use that credit to buy the cigars, right? Because that's how they encourage you to purchase cigars. I also don't purchase from online, but all of the other members do purchase online, because you buy a cigar for $22 and then you love that cigar, you fall in love with it, you want more. It doesn't make sense financially for me to buy 3 cigars at $22 when I can buy a box of 12 for $60, right? So having this, I would buy that box from the lounge if it was available, if it financially made sense, because I want to invest in this small business. I believe in them and I believe in where they're going, but financially it doesn't make sense to me as the consumer. And so if this tax was was changed, then it would encourage me, the consumer, to purchase from local consumers and buy more in that space versus going online. Secondly, I want to point out that, because I took notes, I want to make sure that we are all thinking about that internet purchase. Because that internet purchase is all of their direct competitor, and there's no way to compete with that. You're gonna buy in bulk, right? That's why Amazon is here. And so the only way to encourage consumers to purchase local is to understand that that is a competitive market. And the last thing is, I want more cigar lounges. And so I would like for you to think about this tax and really consider it, because I'd like more options. Thank you.
Well said. My name is Brad Mark, B-R-A-D-M-A-R-K. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm a 33-year resident of Las Vegas, imported from Kansas City. I'm opening a cigar lounge later this year in Las Vegas, and it'll be my 6th business in Nevada. I'm trying really hard to do it and do it right. Premium cigars are a symbol of status. They're a great way to celebrate the birth of a child, or maybe your daughter's wedding, or if you're just having drinks and cigars at to consummate a nice business deal. It's a way of life, and I want that life for my family, for the families that work for me. This bill would give us a fighting chance to compete in a global marketplace. It'll create jobs for Nevada families directly. Like this family. This is Stephen and Sarah and their son Grayson, and they have a new baby on the way. She's due in July, and he's going to come to work for me. He'll get a raise of $15,000 a year to come work for me. It's going to be very helpful with the new baby girl on the way. This young lady, she's pretty special. She is, this is Chelsea. She is about to turn 30 years old. She just bought her first house in Las Vegas in December, and she's been working hard. She lost her job about 3 weeks ago due to downsizing. Well, I've already hired her, put her to work. She's helping me with marketing, helping me with the business development. She's special because this is my daughter. These families will be directly impacted by this, by the opportunity for me to open up a business in Nevada. I've also started working already with the Nevada Business Solutions Office, and we're using the Employee Envy Career Hub to hire and seek out individuals that are on the current unemployment rosters. This will directly help these families by giving them work and help our state by getting them off of unemployment. These are the things we can do as small business owners. Please help us create jobs right here in Nevada. I'll leave you with this. This is my favorite cigar. It's a Liga Privada No. 9 Bellicoso. I bought it in a store in Las Vegas for $22. I bought the same box online for $15.75 per stick. That's a difference of $150 on a box. This is where our state is not getting the tax revenue that we would. It's $150 cheaper. Like Jason said, we can ask people to support our local businesses. Everyone I know that smokes cigars would prefer to buy them in person. It's not like Amazon. Send me my laundry detergent, no problem. But online, I don't want to buy cigars online. The people that smoke cigars want to support our local businesses. If you help us be competitive, they will buy from us, and we'll create these jobs.
Mr. Mark, we actually have a question, I think. I'll go ahead and ask. I think the two of us are on the same page. So with that $15.75 box that you bought, or cigar that you bought online, did you pay sales tax on that?
Absolutely no tax whatsoever.
You didn't pay a sales tax on top of that?
Zero.
Oh, interesting.
Not a
Okay.
sales tax, not a wholesale OTP tax, nothing. $378 total for the box, zero taxes, shipped directly to my house in Nevada.
Mr. Gray, Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Where is that box originating from? when you buy it online?
Brad Mark speaking for the record. I honestly don't know where they ship it out of. I just went online because I know the difference, right, in prices online. We see it every day. Like Jason said, they sit in our lounges and our businesses buying it. I have no idea where it's out of. I just know there's about 100 sites online where I can get them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll go ahead to former Senator Brooks. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you. Chris Brooks for the record. Thank you, Chair Bacchus and members of the committee. I'm here today as a private resident and citizen of the entertainment capital of the world, and I frequent all of the businesses of all of the folks sitting behind me way too much, and including on my way over here. And I would a small business person myself, a avid cigar smoker, and I only buy cigars from these businesses, these bricks and mortar businesses, because I want to support these businesses. But as you've heard already today, I have many options available to me, and cigar smoking is a very social thing, and I would buy more and share more with folks if the playing field was leveled. And so I think this is a very important piece of policy, and I'm just grateful that that it's being brought forth today, and I support it wholeheartedly. But I think maybe my most important credential in this conversation is I was one of the founding members of the Cigar Caucus from the 79th Legislative Session in the Nevada State Assembly. Thank you.
Sharberman for the record. I just wanted to share with you what the impact of this bill passing would be, or if it doesn't pass, would be on our situation within Fuego Cigars. I moved to the United States in 2005. I became a citizen of the United States in 2012. I believe it's the greatest country in the world. I moved to Pittsburgh. I was an executive with a $40 billion company. I spent a year living in Pittsburgh and wondering, why am I living there? And I had the luxury to move around and see where I wanted to make home. I chose Nevada. I chose Las Vegas. I think it's the best state in this country for many, many reasons. I got married. I adopted 2 kids from Clark County system. They're now 15 and 16 years old. We opened 2 cigar lounges. The first one 11 years ago. The second one 7.5 years ago. So one in Las Vegas, one in the city of Henderson. 2 very different stores. Just like my colleagues behind me, it's about the experience. When you come to our stores, you're going to get a different experience. When you go to the other stores, Tap and Ash, Cigar Box, you're going to get unique experiences. That's what cigar smokers look for. We grew our business. In the last 11 years, we have tripled to quadrupled our business. And then COVID hit. And we're sitting there in the last 3 years trying to figure out how we're going to expand. And we've looked in North Las Vegas, we've looked at other parts of the valley, even considered looking in the Reno area. Where can we expand? And the conclusion we came to is we need to go out of state. We are currently, for the last year, we've been looking in Texas, the Houston market, the Fort Worth, Dallas market, in Alabama. So Texas has a 1 cent per cigar tax. Alabama has a 4 cent per cigar tax. Florida, where it's 0, there's lots of opportunity to open more stores in Florida. Of course, if we were to do that, we wouldn't shut down our stores in Nevada, but we would move our entire buying operations outside of state. Cigars are like wine. They get better with age, and every vintage is unique. My colleague just showed you a Liga Privada. They actually taste different every year because it's different crop. So when I'm buying cigars, and on average, between both stores, we're spending 80 to 100,000 a month is what we're buying in inventory. And right off the bat, we're hit with a $30,000 OTP tax that we have to pay. So cash flow wise, our hands are tied. We can't invest what we would like to invest in buying some of the cigars that we know are limited and are going to be vintage in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, and 4 years from now. So, you know, the sad situation up until this point, when we've had the opportunity to come and speak with you today, is that we have been actively looking at opening out of state. If this bill passes, we will not be looking out of state. We will be focusing everything here in Nevada, because Nevada is home. It's where my wife and I have settled. We have 2 businesses. My 2 kids came to me from Nevada, and we hope to be here forever. So thank you for your consideration. This bill is going to impact our lives and the lives of our employees. Thank you.
Chair Bacchus, members of the committee, Devlin Don Eschrouz, DANESHFOROUZ, here in my capacity as a private citizen and a cigar smoker, who want to echo everything that the previous speakers have said. Smoking cigars, it's a lifestyle. It's an opportunity for us to relax, you know, get together with colleagues, enjoy a cigar, recount stories. It's really a way of life. And, you know, as a consumer, I try to make the effort to purchase local in Nevada, have my cigar stores. I've frequented many of these cigar stores of the folks own back here. And I make that effort, but it becomes very difficult to continue making that effort when your friends highlight how much they are saving online or through a mail order catalog or what have you. The savings is quite large. So knowing that this bill would level that playing field, provide equity within that space, and support Nevada small businesses is why I'm up here today supporting it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you all for your testimony. Let's go to the lines. VPS, do we have anyone on the lines wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 232?
To provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 232, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you so much. Going to Las Vegas, is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 232? Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 232? BPS, is there anyone on the line that wishes to give testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 232?
To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 232, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 232? Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 232? BPS, is there anyone on the telephone line wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 232?
To testify in neutral to Assembly Bill 232, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. Would the bill sponsors like to come back up and give closing remarks? And one other thing is a couple of us have been curious whether or not, along with the amendment that we were discussing on a floor, would there be any consideration by the sponsors about a sunset clause as well?
Brian Hibbets for the record. I would be while it's not the ideal thing, otherwise I would have put it in the original bill, I would be more than happy to do a sunset clause, just because that way if things don't work out, then we go back to the way it was. My suggestion would be 5 years, but obviously the way that our body works, that would be kind of silly. So I would say 4 to 6 years. I'd probably err on the side of 6, just so we have more data. But I would absolutely be open to that. Thank you.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and the rest of the committee members. This is Yui Nguyen for the record. I'm a Assemblyman representing District 8 in Southwest Las Vegas. Full disclosure, in my closing remarks, I just want to make sure that I address this part, kind of being addressed by pretty much every presenter in the room already. I am not a cigar smoker. If you see me with something like that, something is really wrong. I just want to make sure that the opportunity of us considering this bill, Assembly Bill 232, are purely for economic development reasons. Assembly District 8, as I proudly have the opportunity to represent, is one of the most diverse districts in Nevada. And our growth of businesses is going leaps and bounds at this point. So many great things happening in District 8, and that's including Mr. Mark's Cigar Lounge that's going to be open up soon in this district. And it gives the opportunity for a non-cigar user like me to partake in the lounge experience with my friends and family who do use this product. True story, I was in a different part of the country with a lot of these friends in the cigar lounge there. And I actually ended up spending 4 hours, more than I thought I would, in that same lounge, consuming products and drinks that are not cigar related, and ended up spending more than those folks that were in the lounge. So this is why I'm part of this bill, is because I believe that there are going to be others like me who may not use the actual product, but will be in those lounges and create opportunities to generate more revenue for the business owner. And as we are knowing, after pandemic, we have a lot of folks who just going out and being supportive of small business, as well as create more opportunities for others to enjoy it. So, therefore, I really encourage this committee, the Assembly Revenue Committee, to consider supporting this bill, as I am continue to be on public record a non-user, but happily to support the economic development part of this part. Back to you, Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you so much, you guys, for your presentation. And with that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 232. Okay, one last word. I'm trying to move us along, so.
Brian Hibbets for the record. I'll make this very quick. As the weeks have gone on since the beginning of session, people keep asking me, how's your cigar tax bill? I said, it's not a cigar tax bill. This is an economic development and small business survival bill. These businesses, they pay rent, they pay employees, they pay insurance, they pay taxes. Their employees pay rent or mortgages, they pay for food, they pay for everything that we all pay for. And if these businesses cannot survive, that economic impact is going to be felt by this state. So I very much urge your support on AB 232. Thank you very much, and I hope that was quick enough.
I appreciate that. With that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 232, and we will move and open the hearing on Assembly Bill 295. If the presenters would like to make their way to the front, and then feel free to start whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, thank you, Chair, and members of the Revenue Committee. For the record, I'm Assemblyman Toby Urick, and I do have the distinct honor and privilege of representing Nevada's Assembly District 19. Today is my first presentation in front of what I will probably say through observation, the friendliest committee on revenue, with my friend Andy Lee Pilbett, presenting Assembly Bill 295, which revises provisions related to certain tax exemptions for veterans and surviving spouses of veterans. I want to tell you that this came to me through one of my early constituent meetings from a friend of mine, and in the process of researching it reminded me of how proud I am to live in a state that continues to support our veterans and their families in a lot of different ways. Our veterans definitely give so much to us. They put their lives on the line. They forgo the stability and comfort that we often take for granted in order to keep our country safe and secure. Their families too, however, make sacrifices every day, even if we don't always see them. They sacrifice the time with their loved ones, they move frequently, and they give so much of themselves to support our military members. As such, I think it's vital that we as a state proudly strive to support both our veterans and their families, and AB 295 is an attempt to do just that. On a personal note, while I have never personally served in the military, I've seen similar sacrifices that are required of our families and loved ones in my own personal career as a law enforcement officer. There were countless times that I had to be away from my family. There were times that I can tell you that I had to get up and leave a birthday party for one of my young children because I was called away. I've missed out on all sorts of other family events in life. I was able to see firsthand some of these difficulties and challenges that caused my wife and the ways that she had to fill the gaps prompted by my career. And so therefore, I'm dedicated to making sure that the benefits we offer in this state support not only those who actually served in military service, but also their families, which again is the intent of AB 295. So with your permission, Chair, what I would like to do is I'd like to set up the context. I'm a very visual person, and even when I was immersed in this, I got a little confused, so I've created a presentation that I think will help set up the context for this to help understand the specifics of AB 295, and then I can quickly walk through the 4 sections of the bill. And then I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Lee Pilbett and give him a chance to make a statement before we take any questions. Okay. So you should have, as an exhibit in front of you, a full sheet, but I would ask that you indulge me and go through my presentation here because it'll help me kind of explain again the context of this. And really what I want you to understand, and I didn't know a lot of this stuff when I first jumped into this, but NRS 361-080 actually provides for a benefit for property tax exemptions for any surviving spouse. Any widow in Nevada can claim a property tax exemption under NRS 361-080. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go along, but I'm going to try to set this up. There are also 2 circumstances under which a military service member or veteran is able to claim a property tax exemption as well. The first is under 361-090, and that is for a non-disabled military veteran, and they get to claim a certain property tax exemption. And then there's a separate heightened property tax exemption that's extended to our military's disabled veterans, and that's found in NRS 361-090. So hopefully that kind of clears that up a little bit. And basically what I want you to understand as I put this out is the numbers that I'm listing here are actually recorded in statute. However, they are adjusted through recent changes to the legislation for adjustments based on consumer price index. And so the numbers that I'm using here have been adjusted, and I apologize, I don't know what those adjustments are personally, but it at least will set up kind of the general framework for this. So for example, the surviving spouse up to the first $1,000, and this is any surviving spouse again, even unrelated to military, could claim a property tax exemption up to the first $1,000 of assessed property value, okay? That is heightened for a non-disabled veteran who even, this is not dealing with surviving spouses now, but a non-disabled veteran, even while they're alive, in fact, specifically while they're alive, can claim a property tax exemption up to the first $2,000 of assessed property value. And then for disabled veterans, they get to claim an even higher amount. It's based on the percentage of their disability. And so you can see on the chart I've given you, if it's 60 to 79% disabled, it's up to the first $10,000 of assessed property value. 80 to 99% disabled is $15,000. And then if they are 100% disabled, they get to claim that property tax exemption for the first $20,000 of assessed value. Again, reminding you, all of those are adjusted by a CPI. So hopefully that, again, sets up the framework here. Now, what are the qualifications for in any surviving spouse to qualify for the property tax exemption? Of course, they have to be a resident of Nevada, and they cannot have remarried. As soon as they remarry, even if that marriage is subsequently annulled, they lose the right to claim that property tax exemption. For a non-disabled veteran, they have certain requirements as well. They have to be a resident. They have to have served at least 90 days of active duty service in times of war. Or they could have served active duty in carrying out the authority that had been granted to a president, or they can serve active duty in a campaign where a medal had been authorized. And of course, any of these benefits that would be extended to a veteran would not qualify if they had been dishonorably discharged. For our disabled veterans, again, same thing, resident of Nevada, and then they have to have suffered some sort of permanent service-connected disability. And if they had been dishonorably discharged, of course, they would not qualify. Now, there is a limitation, as you can imagine, for the veterans portions of this. If a disabled veteran is going to claim their property tax exemption under 091, they cannot also claim that same property tax exemption under 090. So it only lets you have one. And of course, if they had suffered the permanent service-connected disability and it resulted in a higher tax exemption, they would likely do that. Now, here is kind of the final piece that's setting up the framework for what this bill is looking to do. For a disabled veteran, if he or she passes away, that property tax exemption does pass to the surviving spouse of that disabled veteran. The qualifications are they had to have been married to or living with the vet for at least 5 years prior to death. The veteran would have been eligible or is eligible at their time of death for the benefit. And again, they cannot have remarried and they have to be a resident. So this is the framework which sets up AB 295 for you. So where does that land? Basically where it lands here is this. 295 is looking to extend the property tax exemption to surviving spouses of non-disabled veterans. And I hope that that makes sense, and by setting up this context, it clarifies it for you. And so, with your permission, Chair, now I will clearly explain the Section 1 of this bill basically clarifies that a surviving spouse of a qualified non-disabled veteran would qualify for this. They have same qualifications as the disabled vet. They had to have been married to or living with that vet for 5 years prior to death. The veteran would have been or was eligible at the time. They cannot have remarried, and of course, they have to be a resident. And then, of course, we are also clarifying in Section 1 that this individual claiming this benefit could not claim the benefit of a non-disabled veteran, which, again, using the number in statute here adjusted for CPI is 2,000. They could not claim that and then also the surviving spouse benefit under 080, the 1,000. So it clarifies that it is limited to just that. Section 2 of this bill clarifies that you can claim, and this is, it can kind of get a little bit confusing, but if you picture a married couple where both members served in the military, and let's just say hypothetically that it was a female that was non-disabled and there was a male that was disabled, right now they can both claim their benefit for property tax exemptions. That this clarifies that also that if the surviving spouse of a disabled veteran is collecting a benefit and they also qualified for the benefit under 090, they can continue to do that. So again, it's just continuing the current policy, and that's what Section 2 does. Now, if I could try to not make this any more confusing, I'm going to really summarize Section 3 and 4 for you. So as you can imagine, all of our vets that come here and that might otherwise be able to claim this sort of exemption, not everybody owns property in Nevada. And again, in our state's effort to extend these benefits to people who even don't own property, there are mirror provisions, and I might be oversimplifying that, but they're basically mirror provisions that allow for these exemptions to occur in vehicle taxes. And so the sections 3 and 4 basically take those same applicable NRSs for disabled and non-disabled veterans when they don't qualify for that or they don't have property that they would use it for. In real property, they can use it for vehicles. It makes the same identical changes to those provisions that occur in their ability to claim that exemption under NRS 371103 for non-disabled veterans as it relates to vehicles and 371104 for disabled veterans as it relates to vehicles. So that is my pitch and summary. I hope I tried to make it as clear, as concise as possible for you. And those are the explanations of the bill, and I'd like to turn it over to my friend, Andy, so he can offer a little statement before we take your questions.
Chair and committee members, my name is Andrew Lee Pilbit. I'm the chairman of the United Veterans Legislative Council in the state of Nevada. We represent 279,000 veterans, and once you include their families, their immediate families, that's about 16% of our population in the state, so just over 500,000. So the Assemblyman went through this so well, I have to say ditto first, clearly. My main perspective here representing our veterans and their families is our spouses served with us and are still serving with us. They will always be serving with us. They really earned this right. They just didn't have a service number in the military. They've done all the moves, as our Assemblyman stated. They've changed permanent change of station frequently, halfway around the world. I know I drugged my family to different countries. It's tough on them. The spouse earned this as much as we did. Unfortunately, they just didn't get an ID card for that. And this is the right thing to do for the spouses, especially when one of our veterans passes. One of the significant impacts of these spouses are the veteran passes away, and all of a sudden, we all know this story is consistent, the income of the spouse drops enormously, commonly, all right? And what happens then? They're then stuck, they got to sell the property, or worse things than that. This is the right thing to do for the spouses, and it's way overdue in our state. I can tell you, I'll just give you one example instead of 20. I know a soldier, I know his spouse, and I've known him for many years, and all of a sudden one day, this soldier, not on the disability ranks, comes up with dementia. I mean, a lot of us are old like me, all right? And he's a lot younger than I am, and we were shocked. And then all of a sudden it progressed to his driver's license is taken away because he can't make it to the corner store without getting lost. And we love this man, and we love his wife. Now his wife has to watch him every day, every minute. She can't let him just walk out in the yard and let him just wander around, all right? So our spouses are investing every ounce of energy and time to protect our veterans. We should help protect them by passing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the gentlemen here for your guys' service. It is truly appreciated. You kind of hit a little home on your story. My father-in-law was an Air Force retired colonel and had the pleasure of him living with me at the end of his life, and he ended up suffering from vascular dementia. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to questions that we may have for you all, and we'll start with Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation and for your service. I do think about the spouses a lot as a family law attorney. One of the cases I remember in particular was a wife who, in 22 years of being married to an officer, had been at 11 different stations. And besides the fact that she was an officer's wife, so her job was to be an officer's wife, because she was in 11 different stations in 22 years, there was no way for her to work anywhere, to get retirement, to build anything like that. So I really do think of her when I see this bill. But I do have a question about the 5 years. So it's 5 years together, but what if the service member is deployed? I want to make sure we get on the record if during those 5 years they're together in the relationship, but the member is deployed, does that still count toward the 5 years? Or working out of the war, they're back and they're already a veteran, but they have the type of job where they travel, a traveling nurse, something like that, where they're traveling out of state. Are they still covered under this?
Chair, through the to the Assemblywoman, my name, for the record, Andrew LaPelbit. They're deployed. That doesn't change the status. They're married. That's it. It's just a matter of fact.
And if I may, I think the language is living together, and that's just what worries me, that I want to make sure we've got a clear record, that living together doesn't mean that they have to be in the household together as long as they are married.
Thank you, Chair. Toby Yurk, for the record, through you to the Assemblywoman. This is existing law, and so perhaps legal might be able to address how that has been addressed in the past. We're merely carrying over the provisions, and certainly the intent would be to do exactly as you're suggesting right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. We obviously don't have legal, but we do have a legal representative. We need to follow up with that, but it is quite unique that it is specific in the statute, not just only married, but also living with. With that, we'll go to Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this. As an active duty enlisted military spouse, I really appreciate this. My question really, though, is do we know about how many people currently are using the exemption? I honestly asked my husband, and he said he didn't know that we, could be exempted from property taxes. So really want to know how many people are using it, and how are we going to tell our spouses to make sure?
Andrew Lee Pilbert, for the record, we have no idea. There are 279,000 veterans. There is no master log on where it is. We'd have to actually have somebody accumulate the data from each county and from the county recorders. I don't believe there's a register anywhere with that detail.
Toby Yurk, for the record, Chair, through you to the Assemblywoman. I will tell you that I can imagine that it is widely being underutilized, because in the number of phone calls that I made in doing my research to friends, they were completely unaware of not only the disabled veteran or the disabled veteran, but that it would even pass to a surviving spouse. So I think that there are benefits that are not being taken advantage of right now.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll go to Minority Leader O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. And I have two questions, if I may. They're sort of opposite questions, I think everybody will admit or know that the strong support that I give for our veterans. But I want to ask, we talk about the families who served in support of their spouse while they were serving. So my question is, that spouse has passed away, the non-veteran spouse, and the veteran remarries 5-10 years later, or whatever it may be, would they also qualify? They weren't there at all during the service time for that veteran. I just want to clarify if they would or would not serve, because we keep talking about how they were with the spouse during the service time. How about when they weren't?
Thank you, Assemblyman, for the question. Toby Yurk, for the record, Chair, through you to the Assemblyman. My understanding is the way it is written, again, I'm going to go back to the prior question, that I don't think a lot of this is even being utilized. But I do believe that as it is written, it would be extended to a current spouse as long as they met the qualifications of having been married to that veteran for the preceding 5 years. And I think that, as indicated by my friend here, that especially in those later years when we would presume that a lot of these benefits would kick in, there's still support that goes on in dealing with the long-term effects of that military service.
And Chair, may I? that teed me up just great for the second question. I appreciate it. What would you think about adding also, the spouse has passed away, but one of the children of, whether it's from that marriage, the marriage while they were serving, as our chair even said that she took care of her father for several years while he was in latter stages of dementia. Should they qualify? I personally believe they should. It's still a service to that veteran. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on that at all.
Thank you very much for the question, Assemblyman. Toby York, for the record, Madam Chair, through you to the Assemblyman. That question is just another example of, I think, why Nevada is so great at supporting our veterans. I will tell you, it's not something that we contemplated in this. It would be, I think, a larger step than we've taken in the past because, as already is indicated through the presentation, this is merely an extension of the benefits that were there and that we're offering for non-disabled veterans. And that is a larger step. I would say that, of course, I'm open to any idea that we might be willing to, through policy, to extend benefits to those people that did love, support, and encourage our service members while they're away. And so I'm certainly open to having those discussions.
I appreciate that, and I would like to have the discussion because I do think there is a service, and there's probably some nuances to it that they have to be living the 5 years taken care of. We could work something out, but I would like to offer it up to the committee for consideration and appreciate the bill immensely, bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. My question has to do with page 8, lines, in particular lines 20 through 26. And that has to do with the transfer of using this taxation, or excuse me, the exemption from taxation from the house or real estate over to the vehicle. If you could go into that a little bit more of what exactly that taxation would include, like what areas would be exempted in particular, because I'm not as familiar with all the different vehicle taxation areas.
Thank you very much for that question. Madam Chair, Toby York, for the record, through you to the Assemblywoman. You're looking at specifically there an amendment to, whoops, I went back too far, to NRS 371103, which is basically the identical provision that offers property tax exemptions to the same value for real property to vehicles. So if a vet doesn't have real property, let's say they moved and they're living here in Nevada, but they're renting an apartment, they can still get that exemption through a tax exemption with their vehicle. I hope that makes sense.
So is it in this, thank you. I'm still wrapping my head around it. So is it in the same chapter? And I think that's where my confusion is coming from, because I feel like we've gone from real estate, now we're going to a vehicle. So that's where my confusion is stemming from.
We may save you from that, and we will turn over to our fiscal expert, Mr. Nakamoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Nakamoto, Chief Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division, for the record. The sections that Assemblywoman Anderson is referring to, NRS 371-103, that provides a corresponding exemption to the governmental services tax that is paid on the at the time of registration of a motor vehicle, that is substantially similar to the property tax exemption being referenced.
Thank you to our expert, Mr. Nakamoto. Let's go to Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, ma'am. Just having some experience with this, I was actually going to add in what Mr. Nakamoto had just said, and just let Assemblywoman Anderson know exactly where that impacts it. So, thank you.
With that, I don't believe we have any other questions for the bill sponsors, so we will go ahead and start taking testimony and support. To allow them time, we'll start in Las Vegas. Is there anybody in Las Vegas that wishes to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 295? Okay. BPS, is there anyone on the phone line wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 295?
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 295, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, members of the Assembly. I am Glenn Morgan. That's Glenn, Glenn, Morgon, from District 19. I'm in support of AB 295 to extend the tax exemptions to the surviving spouses of deceased veterans. I am a veteran myself, having served in the Army Reserves, and the National Guard. In late 2004, I was deployed to Iraq for a year with the Nevada National Guard. This left my wife and mother of our then 3-month-old daughter on her own to handle the needs of the household. To add to this, she lived in a constant state of worry of my status until I could contact her about every week or two. But while on active duty, I also saw married soldiers uproot their spouses and family lives as they would get moved from duty station to duty station. Even training deployments could leave a spouse alone with the household duties for a month, or in the case of the Navy, for many months. But Nevada honors its veterans and their sacrifices by providing these tax-exempt benefits. I believe this bill allows us to continue to honor them after their passing by continuing to support their spouses who have experienced their own share of stresses and sacrifices, and not heap upon them another financial burden after suffering the loss of their veteran spouse. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 295, please press star 9 now to take your place.
My name is Wally Coas. I reside in Las Vegas, 32 years. I recently and proudly retired from the Air Force after 21 years. My last few years in the military was in charge of a section called Airmen and Family Readiness. This is a section where we offer support for all airmen before, during, and after their deployments, from food banks to financial advice and everything in between. The real unseen and unheard hero here is our spouses left behind, with all the worry and the wonder if their spouses are coming home. They have to handle everything when their spouses leave: children, work, house, cars, bills. I'd like to ask you just to imagine everything that we all take for granted when we're here, and when we have to leave for like a week or two or more, and leave the households to our spouses and all the stresses in between. At my retirement ceremony, I gave my wife a medal and a certificate. I'd like to read this short certificate to you. The spouse does not wear a uniform yet to serve. They serve their country. They do not acquire nor wear ribbons showing where they have been, yet they go. They did not ask for the duties they perform, yet they unwaveringly serve to their best ability. They serve, yet are not honored with trinkets or pieces of cloth showing their service. The burning candle signifies the lonely nights you have spent and that you have kept the home fires burning, a symbol with no beginning and no end. The ring around the candle flame symbolizes the undying flame of love for their spouse. The image of a rose is for the unwavering devotion you have shown for your spouse and their service to their country. The medal is gratefully given to those that do not ask, those that stay on the home front so that their spouse can serve, for they also proudly serve their country. I'd like to also add to the Assemblyman's recommendation to add children. I would support that 100%. I also gave all 3 of my children medals and certificates at my retirement ceremony as well. In closing, I'm sure you are aware that military members and their families are not serving for the money. It sure would be nice to give them a little financial benefit, but this bill states, especially when they ultimately lose their loved one. I support Assembly Bill 295.
Thank you so much for your services and your wife's as well. BPS, next caller, please.
There are no other callers to testify in support at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll move to Carson City. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 292 this evening?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is J.R. Stafford for the record. I am president of the Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 989 in Reno, Nevada. I represent 242 people, not the millions that my compatriot says he represents. No. However, we're feisty. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I am a Vietnam veteran, United States Air Force for 4 years, United States Coast Guard for 32 years, most recently deployed in Guantanamo Bay for 6 months. My spouse was home for 6 months while I was in Cuba. What happens when I'm gone and you got to fix the refrigerator, something goes wrong with the kids, something is, she's on her own. And I don't mean that. It could be the man on his own while the spouse used to be in the sandbox or whatever. This opportunity for you to think positively about this bill and pass this bill will go a long way. And I would like to also reiterate, not only veterans of my generation from Vietnam, we're dying of Agent Orange, suicide, and PTSD. And it's not just us. This has now gone on to the younger veterans. They've been exposed to all manner of horrors in the Middle East, from burn pits, PTSD, and they're going through the same thing that we are. And I have no doubt that I will outlive my spouse. And I would appreciate the opportunity, or that she has the opportunity to use the same benefit that you folks can extend. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And also, we recognize we have other veterans in our audience today, so thank you for coming out in support of this bill. With that, we'll invite the bill sponsors back up to the dais to give any closing remarks. But before you give the closing remarks, I'm going to have Mr. Nakamoto provide additional information on the number of persons claiming the exemption. I apologize. I was so taken away. I forgot to ask for opposition on the bill. Thank you. Thank you, Assemblyman Hafen. We'll go ahead and start in Las Vegas. Just for the record, I do need to go through all of that. In Las Vegas, is there anyone who wishes to give testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 292? I don't see anyone there. Anyone on the phone lines? BPS, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 292?
There are no callers to provide testimony in opposition at this time.
Is there anyone in Carson City who wishes to give testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 292? With that, we have to take testimony in the neutral as well. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 292? BPS, is there anyone on the telephone lines wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 292?
There are no callers to testify in neutral at this time.
Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 292? Okay, with that, now I will turn it over to Mr. Nakamoto regarding the number of persons claiming the exemption.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. The Department of Taxation actually releases what is known as the Tax Expenditure Report, which tracks exemptions, abatements, postponements, deferrals, credits, all these terms that are defined in statute. This bill the legislature passed within about the past decade or so. I don't remember offhand. They tend to blur together after a while. But the information from the most recent tax expenditure report that was published by the Department of Taxation indicates that for the non-disabled veteran property tax exemption under NRS 361.091, or sorry, 090, there were 16,393 veterans who claimed the exemption in FY 2021, and only 15,090 who claimed it in FY 22. Since the question came up with respect to the governmental services tax, I did look as well because that is tracked in addition. The Department of Motor Vehicles, their information is a little less precise, and then the information that they provide to the Department of Taxation on these exemptions under NRS 371.103 also include the disabled veteran exemption under NRS 371.104. There is also a provision within 371.103 that allows the veteran to transfer that exemption to his or her spouse, which for the logic that the veteran may not have the ability to drive for whatever reason. The Department of Motor Vehicles indicated that there were 77,784 claims for these combined exemptions in FY 2021 and 75,129 claims for the exemptions in FY 22. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll turn it over to Assemblyman Urick for closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to personally thank you for your attempt to live up to my prior comment about this being the most friendly committee on revenue. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for hearing the presentation today and for your thoughtful comments and questions. We truly believe that this bill will help our state support our veterans and their families, which is a critical step to honoring the sacrifices that they too make for our country. And I respectfully urge your support of Assembly Bill 295. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 295 and move on to a public comment. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give public comment this evening? BPS, is there anyone on the telephone line wishing to give public comment this evening?
To provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to give public comment this evening? With that, we can go ahead and get ready to close our meeting, but do we have any remarks from any of our committee members this evening? Okay. Our next hearing will be on Thursday, and I believe, look at the agenda for the room number we will be in, because we're kind of moving around to help other committees out that are doubling up. And with that, we'll go ahead and close our hearing this evening. Thank you.